In June 2016, one of Facebook's most senior executives stood on a stage in London and told a room full of the most powerful people in media exactly what the future was. One word: video. She wasn't guessing. She had the receipts. In a single year, Facebook had gone from 1 billion video views a day to 8 billion. On paper, the argument was over. The written word was finished, and video was whatever came next. So the smartest companies in news did the sensible thing. They believed her. They fired the writers. They bet everything on video. A few years later, those same newsrooms were being gutted because the number they'd bet everything on turned out to be a lie. And right now, big tech is running the exact same play, except this time, it's not video, it's AI. To understand how a whole industry falls for something twice, you have to go back to the first time. And the first time starts with one fact. By 2016, Facebook wasn't just a website, it was the front door to the internet. If you ran a media company, Facebook decided your fate. Its feed was where your readers lived, and its algorithm decided whether a story reached 2 million people or nobody at all. Your traffic, your ad money, your payroll, all of it ran through one company's app. So when that company started telling you where the future was, you didn't hear a suggestion, you heard an instruction. And in early 2016, the instruction was one word. In February, Mark Zuckerberg told investors he saw video as a megatrend on the same order as mobile, and that he'd be putting video first across everything Facebook owned. That June, a senior Facebook executive named Nicola Mendelsohn stood on a stage in London and said it plainly. If she had to bet, it'd be video, 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 and Facebook would probably be all video within 5 years. Her proof? In 1 year, Facebook video had jumped from 1 billion views a day to 8 billion, and that's the move every time. Big tech doesn't ask you to change, it tells you what the future is and dares you not to follow. It's easy to sneer at them now. Thousands of people rebuilt their entire business overnight because a platform told them to. But that's the part everyone gets wrong. They weren't gullible, they were cornered. Facebook was sending them a huge share of their readers, for many outlets, close to half. And its feed had already started quietly favoring video over text. So a company that refused to pivot wouldn't just miss a trend. It would watch Facebook's algorithm bury its articles and choke off the readers it lived on. Saying no didn't mean staying safe, it meant dying slower. So they didn't really choose video. They chose the only door that wasn't locked, and every one of them walked through it at the same moment. Once one company jumped, they all had to. In a stampede, standing still is the most dangerous thing you can do. So the pivot to video stopped being a strategy and became a religion, and it started with the writers. At Mike, a site built on written news for young people, management laid off most of its editorial staff and announced it would become the leader in visual journalism. Vice cut around 60 people to feed its video push. Vox let go of dozens more. Across the industry, the same memo went out in different fonts. Writers are expensive. Video is the future. Do the math. And the money agreed. In late 2016, NBC Universal looked at BuzzFeed, a company famous for quizzes and listicles, and handed it $200 million, on top of $200 million the year before. That put BuzzFeed's value at $1.7 billion. Vice, riding the same wave, was worth $5.7 billion. Now look at who was actually taking the risk. The media companies were firing their own people, tearing up a business that worked, and betting their futures on video. Facebook was doing none of that. Facebook was just posting a number. One side was gambling everything. The other was gambling nothing. And when a bet like this falls apart, the company that made the promise never pays. You do. By 2017, the whole thing looked unstoppable. Billions in valuations, hundreds of millions in fresh investment, and an entire industry pointed one way, exactly like Facebook said. There was just one problem. The number underneath all of it, the 8 billion views, the proof that video was the future, wasn't real. It had been inflated, and not by a little. And the two questions that came next, how big the inflation really was, and how long Facebook had sat on it, would turn a business story into something closer to a crime. Here's how the trick worked, and it's so simple it's almost insulting. When Facebook measured how long people watched a video, it didn't count everyone who saw it. It only counted people who watched for more than 3 seconds. Everyone who scrolled past, the vast majority, got thrown out of the math. Think about what that does. If you only average the people who stuck around and ignore everyone who didn't, the average watch time balloons. It's like measuring the average height of a room, but only counting people over 6 feet and then announcing that everyone is tall. In September 2016, Facebook quietly admitted it. The number it had been showing advertisers and publishers was inflated by somewhere between 60% and 80% for 2 years. Now, Facebook called it an honest mistake, but the advertisers who later sued told a very different story. In their lawsuit, they alleged the real inflation wasn't 60 or 80%. It ran as high as 900%. And they claimed Facebook's own engineers had caught the problem back in 2015, and that the company sat on it for more than a year while the money kept coming. Facebook denied any wrongdoing, and in 2019, it settled the case for $40 million. $40 million. To a company that made over $18 billion in profit that same year, you couldn't even call it a punishment. It's like handing a kid a slice of cake while telling him he's in trouble. So let's tally who paid what. Facebook paid $40 million and admitted nothing. The media companies paid with their writers, their newsrooms, and for some of them, their entire existence. The one who told the lie barely felt it. The ones who believed it never recovered. That's the rule, and it never changes. They don't pay. You do. And here's the part worth being honest about, because it's what everyone gets wrong. Video wasn't the villain. People genuinely like video. That was never the problem. The poison was the lie about it, and betting everything on a company that had no reason to tell you the truth. But the fake number was never really the story. The machine that did this, a giant telling an industry where to run, then getting paid whether it was right or wrong, that machine is still running. And right now, in 2026, it's pointed straight at you. We'll get there. But first, the cruelest twist of all. Because for a little while, it actually looked like they'd been right about video. Here's what makes this story genuinely painful. After the lie came out, video didn't collapse. For a while, it exploded. Take Tasty, BuzzFeed's food channel, those overhead clips of hands building a cheeseburger in 15 seconds. By late 2016, Tasty was one of the biggest video operations on the planet, pulling well over 1 billion views a month. On its own, it looked like living proof the pivot was working. Then, Facebook poured gasoline on the fire. In 2017, it launched Watch, its own video platform, practically begging publishers to make more. BuzzFeed announced it had racked up 65 billion views in a single year. Executives were saying video would be 75% of the business. So the industry doubled down. It hired more video teams and poured in more money, because if the number that started it all was fake, nobody wanted to hear it. The new numbers looked incredible. But the truth that nobody wanted to say out loud is this. All those billions of views barely made money. Facebook's video ads paid terribly next to the old website ads. People watched Tasty for 15 seconds with the sound off, then scrolled on. The views were real. The revenue was a trickle. Even the wins were hollow. Someone finally asked the obvious question about those 65 billion views. What does that actually turn into in ad dollars? And the honest answer was nowhere near enough to replace what they'd torn down. Remember what they'd already done to get here. They'd fired the writers, the reporters and editors, the people who made things worth reading, gone months earlier to fund the video dream. So even at the peak, these companies had already hollowed themselves out. They'd traded the one thing that made them valuable for a pile of views that didn't pay. The peak wasn't a comeback. It was the last good look from the top of a cliff. So keep your eye on one company on the way down, BuzzFeed, the one that rode Tasty to the top. Because years later, it would hear a brand new promise about the future, a promise called AI, and walk up to the same cliff a second time. And what happens to it in 2026 is the part that should worry you most. In January 2019 alone, around 2,100 media jobs vanished in a single month. BuzzFeed laid off hundreds. HuffPost was gutted. The industry had a grim joke for it by then. The pivot to video was never a strategy. It was a slow-motion layoff with a marketing plan. Then, the companies themselves started to die. Mike collapsed and was sold for parts. In 2023, BuzzFeed shut down its entire news division, the one that had won a Pulitzer. That same year, Vice, a company worth $5.7 billion at its peak, filed for bankruptcy. The empire that was supposed to be the future of media was auctioned off for scraps. Facebook, meanwhile, was fine. It had moved on years earlier, and by 2024, it had decided news wasn't worth showing at all, choking off whatever traffic was left. The company that told an entire industry to jump barely remembered pushing. And if that were the whole story, this would just be sad history. But it isn't. Because it's happening again, right now. And right now, in 2026, big tech has a new one-word future: AI. And the playbook is running move for move. A platform hands you an audience, you build your whole business on it, and then the platform changes the rules and takes the audience back. Google now answers questions with its own AI, so people never click through to the sites that wrote the answers in the first place. In a single year, Google's traffic to publishers fell by about a third. Some sites lost 90% or more. Meta decided news wasn't worth the trouble and filled its feeds with AI slop instead. And remember BuzzFeed, the company that rode Tasty to the top of the last bubble? It did the exact same thing all over again. It bet on AI, stuffed itself with AI quizzes and AI-written articles, and by 2026, it was warning investors it might not survive the year. The company that pivoted to video, then pivoted to AI, is being killed by the second bet, before it ever recovered from the first. Same trap, new technology, and the same people left paying for it. But here's the part the doomers get wrong, and it matters. AI is not the villain. In the right hands, it's a tool that helps a real person make something real. The problem was never the technology, not video, not AI. The problem was believing a giant who tells you where to run, and betting everything you have on a company that was never on your side. That's the trap. It gets a new name every decade, and it works every time, because we keep staring at the tool instead of the hand holding it.